Welcome to the Black Male Impact. Today we have Mr. Shawn Dove, who is a committed individual to service. But before we get into the conversation, I'll ask Mr. Dove to introduce himself. But just wait a minute before I have him introduce himself. Mr. Dove have been serving as a leader within the Black male space for a long time. And when I started this journey, he was someone that they have introduced me to. And I can tell you, his work speak for itself. And a lot of you know Shawn and the work that he's doing, but I'm not going to take up a lot of time in talking about what he's doing. I'm just going to give him the opportunity to share with us before we get into the conversation today. Mr. Dove, please share more about yourself and what you're doing before we get into the conversation today.
Sure. But let me first begin, brother Dr. Cross, that it is a joy to finally be having this conversation with you. I know that we have been intersecting for the last 7 years.
Yes, sir.
And I hope that it will be worth the wait. And God, I have been blessed in so many ways to live a life that really exemplifies, I would say, my tagline and my ethos of love, learn, and lead. And if anyone was to look at my bio and the work that I've done over the course of my career, I would point them to the bottom line of my bio that states that I'm married to my divine mate, Desiree Dove, and I am the proud dad of Nia, Maya, Cameron, and Caleb, my 4 children. And I often joke around and say that my prayer has often been about my kids. Forgive them, Lord, for they know not that they dance on my last nerve. And so fatherhood, being a husband, I would say out of all the things that I've been blessed to accomplish and to achieve is at the top of that list. And I am Deanna's son. We was just sharing in the green room and sharing our Jamaican lineage that I was born to a single mom, right, Deanna, who immigrated from Jamaica when she was 18 years old, from Kingston, Jamaica to New York City, had me at 22 and just demonstrated sacrifice, generosity, creativity, leveraging social capital before social capital was even a term, right, in the ether. And so I will just close and say that my 40 plus year leadership journey has intersected community building, education, publishing and journalism, philanthropy, youth development, faith-based strategies. I've been blessed to be exposed to so much with so many mentors and teachers. And my mantra, my leadership mantra is I've learned that there's no cavalry coming to save the day in our communities, especially when we're talking about Black men and boys, that we are the iconic leaders that we've been waiting for and curators of the change we're seeking to see. And when we say curators, that shows us, brother, that we have everything that we need. We just need to get information and get in divine alignment with all the resources that we already have that we don't believe that we do have.
And I really like that you mentioned to get in divine alignment and that we have within us what it takes to change the narrative, especially around Black men and boys. And I know you have been committed to that journey. But thanks also for sharing that much of your life with us, from which you've taken time from your wife and kids, and just to make that commitment to this journey, to be of service and to make an impact, communities, to inspire and empower the next generation. But before we get into the conversation itself, how long have you been leader of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement?
Wow. So I would say the true answer to that is for 61 and a half years, right? And so I would say that when I was born on September 25th, 1962, unbeknownst to me, that God has set me on a journey of Black male achievement. I was born, in the cradle of the civil rights movement.
Okay.
I was born in 1962 and came of age and reaped so many benefits that my ancestors and forefathers and mothers sacrificed for. So I came of age at a time where, even though Black men have long been criminalized, demonized, that there was this like Jesse Jackson, I am somebody, right? And so I truly believe that I was born and called to do this, right? Formally leading the campaign for Black male achievement, I launched the campaign for Black male achievement in June of 2008 at the Open Society Foundations. Ran it and led it with a host of cross-sector leaders and partners for 7 years within the philanthropy,
Yeah.
and then spun it off into an independent entity for another 5 years. And we sunset operations of the campaign for Black male achievement at the end of 2020, like at the precipice of the pandemic. The board and I, we made a decision. We were in the midst of some financial challenges, which seemed so nominal in hindsight.
Yeah.
The amount of dollars when I think about it now, and so what I did was, and I always long had the vision of transforming the campaign for Black male achievement into the corporation for Black male achievement,
Okay.
an endowed philanthropic social enterprise to lean into this issue for the long haul. And one of the things I will tell you, a lesson that I learned in the midst of sunsetting the campaign for Black male achievement, and I know you like to ask, your guests about mindsets, right? And there are many mindsets that I think are important for impact. But one of those mindsets is like it's not what happens to you; it's how you respond. It's a mindset of resiliency. It's a mindset of knowing that you may have the best laid plans, but shift happens. And so when we made the decision to sunset the campaign for Black male achievement, talk about narrative, often the narrative that is most important is the narrative that we have in our own heads and the stories we are telling ourselves. And for a minute there, I was telling myself a narrative of failure, that you failed, Shawn. But I learned the power of perspective and perception. And I learned that if you can reframe your seeming failure, you can reframe your future. And my reframing, Dr. Cross, was like, hold up, Shawn, how is that failure? You were originally supposed to be a 3-year campaign when you launched in 2008.
Yeah.
Here you are 12 years later.
Okay.
You put and helped to catalyze $250 million on the ground for Black men and boys and organizations and leaders, and helped to, you sat across from President Obama to help him launch My Brother's Keeper. What are you talking about failure? How could that be a failure? And so everything has a season. And so I learned that, the original vision that I had of the Corporation for Black Male Achievement was this $250 million, social enterprise. But God said, no, we're going to start a little bit smaller than that, right? It's going to start as a small LLC, focusing on publishing and leadership development, and specifically with a sweet spot of young Black men of 18, between the ages of 18 and 25, and allowing them and creating platforms for them to tell their own story. One of my mantras, brother, is, and you do a fantastic job
Thank you.
exemplifying that we as Black men, we have to become masters of our own media.
Yes.
Uh, I grew up watching folks like Earl Graves, the founder of Black Enterprise, John Johnson, the founder of Ebony, and writers like Claude Brown, who wrote Man, Child in the Promised Land, tell their stories. And that seed has always been downloaded in me. And so I've always have been publishing and producing works of literature and bringing folks along with me, like anthologies. And I think I just saw that you are coming out with an anthology as well.
Yes,
So
sir.
we got to tell our stories. We got to own our stories. And the most important story is the story that we are telling ourselves about ourselves.
I really appreciate you sharing that perspective. There are a few things that you shared that I believe we really need to keep in mind as we take on this journey, especially as Black men. As you said, to be masters of our own media. I think that is important because if we don't tell a positive story of who we are, we can't really expect others to do that for us. It's something that we have to do and do it intentionally. And also, you shared, it's important that we have in our mind what is positive about us. Because if we don't think it is possible, we're not going to even attempt doing the work. And
Yes.
also, I think that you shared that I really believe is important for us. And as you talk about your journey and how you look at what happened, say, 12 years later after you started, the power of perspective. Because a lot of times things happen when we are on the journey and we have accomplished so much, but we use one incident to judge what we have been doing all this time, the impact we have been making. And I can tell you, you have impacted so many. Your work impact my decision in doing this work because, you were ahead of me doing the work. And one thing for me, I know I have to learn from those who are ahead of me, who have laid a foundation. So that in itself, it is success. As you mentioned, that once you impact others, it could be one person. And I know you have impacted thousands, maybe millions of individuals. But I like those perspectives that you share, the power of perspective. And it's important that we become masters of our media.
Yes,
That is so
our own media, right?
our
Owning
own,
it, right?
our own media.
Brother, you just lifted something up. One of my mission mantras, and I have many, and you've just like brought this to life for me, is that, and for and this is for someone that's listening and watching this that is like toiling, might be discouraged, might be a little frustrated, might even feel that they may not be getting the recognition that they deserve or the resources that they feel that they deserve. But this mission mantra is someone that you don't even know is rising up in their leadership calling only because they're watching you rise up in yours.
Yes, sir.
And you shared with me when you were launching at Clark University 7 years ago or so that some folks recommended that, you get in contact with me and the work that I was doing around Black male achievement. It took us 7 years to connect, but I didn't know 7 years ago that there was a brother down in Atlanta that it was at Clark University that was launching this and was being inspired because he was watching me and my journey, right? And so that's real powerful. And the beauty of it is, and I shared with you and I'll share with your audience, I'm looking at you and what you have created with Black Male Impact. And I'm like, God, I want to be like Dr. Cross. Look at the systems, look at his books, look at his work on campus. I was like, I need to get a coaching session with Dr. Cross and learn from him. That's how God
Absolutely.
works, man. So, and I think that also for Black men in this work, our ability to embrace each other in a spirit of cooperation and collaboration as opposed to comparison
Yeah.
and competition
Yeah.
is key.
It is. It is.
It's key. And I've seen so much potential lost, so many resources left on the table because of competition, lack of formation, and organization, right? And so that's a message that I would share. That my journey in my 61 years, it has been a host of mentors pouring into me, a host of partners and other leaders, men and women of all races, pouring into me. No way have I been able to do this alone. And I tell a story, and I'll just say this really briefly because I know you have another question, but one of
Several.
the stories that I tell is really about the power of the parable of the talents remixed. And I often wonder, and we all know, most of us know the parable of the talents in Matthew 25:14, where a master was going on a far journey and he called three of his servants, right? And he gave one 5 talents, another 2 talents, and another 1 talent. And he left on his on his journey, right? And we know, as the parable says, the brother with 5 talents went out and doubled that. The brother with 3 talents, 3 talents in this, I think, parable, he went out and doubled this. The brother with the 1 talent was scared and he went and he buried his talent. But the parable says they each got talent, each according to their ability and what they had the capacity to handle. And
Correct.
I always wonder about the remix. What if the brother with 5 talents went and found a brother with the 2 talents and said, let's go find a brother, the servant with the 1 talent, help him dig up his talent. And together they formed 3 servants incorporated. And when the master returned, they were all blessed. Some days, brother, I am the 5 talent brother. Some days I am the 2 talent brother. Some days, too often than I would love to share, I am the 1 talent brother that has buried my talent. But God has blessed me with so many servant leaders in my life that we have come together and we have partnered to really manifest this metaphor of 3 servants incorporated. We need more of that in this time because we all have something, right? That 1 talent that that brother buried could be the talent that someone was looking for.
Right.
So that is a prevailing message of collaboration and cooperation and building together, right? And putting assets together as Black men.
And you hit the nail on the head in regards to us collaborating. And to go back to what you had shared earlier, we have in us what we need to make the contribution, to make a difference. And if we're going to really move forward, as you mentioned, man, we really have to come together because we all have something that can complement what the other person is doing. And we have to realize that. And we can't continue to compete. We have the answers. We have the answers for our progress. We have the answers to change the narrative. We have the answers to build our community. We have the answers to help close the achievement gap. We have the answers to even help close the wealth gap. But we have to come together so we can grow what we have within, as you mentioned, And I like the parable that you share with the 5 talents. We all have something to contribute to humanity. And normally, as you mentioned, I normally start off with a positive impact question and mindset, but you shared that we need to have that resiliency and to change the perspective first in our mind. So I'm going to go with my next question, and we're going to just keep the conversation going. So what advice do you have for the men listening and how they can play a role in creating positive change?
Yeah, love that. So the advice I would have is to spend infinitely more time looking in the mirror than you do looking out the window. Often as men, we are looking out the window, wanting to cast a vision, looking at the land we want to conquer and all of like what we want to do, looking out the window. But we don't spend as much time looking in the mirror. And before you can create impact externally, you have to create impact internally. Lauryn Hill said, you got to get right within, right? And so I am a staunch proponent of therapy. I am a staunch proponent of men's groups and getting together with men that you love and you can trust and that you feel safe with, that you can get vulnerable with. And I say, work harder on yourself than you do on your job or in whatever service area that you are working in and what mission and cause that you have adopted. That is just like the number one advice that I would give. And self-compassion, we can be so hard on ourselves. We can be so wanting to be perfectionists with ourselves, and the ability to give ourselves some grace, right, and self-compassion. And brother, I will share with you that I recently was so blessed to receive a inaugural Brotherhood Award from a Values Partnership, a firm that Joshua Dubois launched, and Black Enterprise, Alfred Edmond Jr., who has been a leader there for 3 decades, if not more. And they awarded me the Lifetime Achievement Award, and with about 6 other brothers, most of whom I have done work with. But one of the things I shared in just receiving the award, that there would not have been a Lifetime Achievement Award for Shawn Dove if not for 35 years ago, in the grips of my addiction to alcohol and drugs, I didn't go through with my plan. My plan was, I didn't know how to get freedom from this addiction. And the only way that I believed that I can get freedom was taking my own life. And I had the plan of 34th Street in New York City, Penn Station, jumping on the tracks and grabbing the 3rd rail, right? I couldn't see myself jumping in front of the train, right? That was a little too messy, right? I was like, I'm gonna jump on the tracks and grab the 3rd rail. God had a different plan, and there was divine intervention. And instead of jumping on the tracks, and I write about this in my book, I got on a train and I began my recovery journey. Went into a program called Veritas Therapeutic Community. And so what earned me this Lifetime Achievement Award was everything mostly that happened after I decided not to take my life. And suicide is an affliction in our community. And so many young and old Black men are choosing to take their lives. And I just want to say this because even if there is one person listening in your vast audience, Dr. Cross, that is wondering, are they worth it? Is life worth it to continue? I just pray that my testimony and what I'm sharing is the glimmer of hope, inspiration, the pivotal moment to say to themselves, my life is worth it. I am worth it. And I am not going to take my own life, right? So, there would be no Lifetime Achievement Award if I jumped on them tracks and grabbed the third rail. And I just wanted to, share that part of my story because so many people see Shawn Dove and see what I've achieved and what I've accomplished. They don't see the nights curled up in the fetal position of crying, right? And the moments of despair. And we all have our story. And it's so important in our mentorship, and especially with young people. Yeah, we share our success journey, but also share our failures.
Correct.
Share how we tripped up and we fell, but how we bounced back. And so I think that that's what, Black Male Impact is all about, right?
Correct.
That if you're gonna have impact, guess what? You're gonna get your ass kicked.
Oh yeah, you gotta go through something, and I think it gives you that perspective. Helps you to even dig deeper within yourself. But to go back to before you share the story, your experience before getting the award, that people see the work that you're doing, and when it comes to creating positive change, as you mentioned, we need to look in the mirror. We need to get deeper within self. But you shared something that is really important as you talk about the feeling for suicide and giving up on life, that we need to have that self-compassion because life happens and it may not happen how we want it to happen. But despite what's happening, as you mentioned, as you shared, that yes, we are worthy. Yes, we are enough. And Black men, we have to keep that in mind. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves that I am worthy. My life matters. And despite the challenges and you sharing that story, a lot of people don't know or haven't heard that story and know that you've been there and that you're here with the success that they see. And sometimes hope to have that success, but don't know what you have gone through before you get here. And sometimes, we want the success, but can we walk the journey? But you share something that we all need and need to remember, and that is self-compassion. It's important that we give ourselves grace because on this journey, I can tell you, it's not easy if you want to do something worthwhile in life. And it doesn't even matter if you want to do something worthwhile in life. Life will happen. Life
Yep.
will happen to you. So it's important. And I'm glad that you shared that because, especially with what's going on within our community, we need to have self-compassion. We need to give ourselves grace. So I'm really, again, glad that you share that with us today because we don't know who is listening and who may need that reminder not to give up because years from now, the struggles could be what they are talking about based on their accomplishment and their impact. And as you mentioned, 35 years ago, if you didn't go through with the plan or God didn't intervene, I wouldn't get to see the work that you're doing in 2017, which is just a few years ago. So,
Yes.
and I'm not the only one. There are many people who your work have impacted and have created that foundation. So again, it's important, Black men, that we have self-compassion. We give ourselves grace on this journey, which leads me to this. Lead me to this question, and which you have shared on it, but I'm still going to ask it anyway. So as Black men, how can we help change the narrative today? You are an example of changing the narrative, but if you should advise Black men, how can, as Black men, we help to change the narrative today?
Yeah, so I would go back, Dr. Cross, to one, taking a look and maybe if it needs changing the narrative that's in our own heads of what's the stories that we are saying to ourselves, right? And so I encourage all leaders to keep a journal, right? And do some journaling and some reflective writing on a regular basis, right? Part of my journal practice is every morning, right? I have what I call my mission fuel sessions, right? And so the other thing that we can do as Black men is to understand there's a brother, and I'm sure that you have heard of him in your work and your research, Travian Shorters, that has launched something called Be Me Community and has really taken this notion of asset framing and the science behind it. And so changing the narrative begins with belief, right? And believing that Black men and boys are assets, believing that I am an asset. That doesn't mean that there are not character flaws. That doesn't mean that there are not any problems, but leading with aspirations, leading with dreams, and you know, not toxic positivity, but what is the good that you want to create in the world? And that begins like individually with changing the narrative. I often say, brother, that we are both favored, we are both infinitely favored and flawed as human beings and as Black men. But what we focus on determines what becomes manifest in our life, right? So I think starting there in the mirror about changing the narrative and then telling your story. Some of us believe that, oh, when I become famous, when I do this, when I do, you know, someone, whether you are 16 years old or you are 66 years old or you are 96 years old, your story is waiting to be heard by someone that is looking for a source of inspiration, a source of being able to say, Shawn did it, I can do it, right? So changing the narrative is one about, and we talked about it earlier, right? Sharing the whole side of your story, right? And there are some things, you know, don't get stupid with your transparency and vulnerability. There are things that don't need to be said, but people do need to know that, wow, his stumbling blocks, he was able to turn into stepping stones, right?
Yeah.
And so if you have a phone, you're a publisher.
Yeah.
You can go on social media. You can change the narrative of Black men and boys by creating platforms and stories of asset-based stories of Black men and boys. I think also when you talk about changing the narrative, I think there's a false narrative that is over amplified that Black men don't love and support Black women. That is a lie, right? And just because we are leaders in the Black male achievement field, just because you raise a flag for one thing doesn't mean you are diminishing something else, right? And so the narrative of how we are supporting and in some cases protecting and covering Black women, right? And not only a Black woman, LGBTQ, right? We just finished Pride Community. Dr. David Johns said to me, and he is, and we've worked together for years, and he is a staunch advocate for the LGBTQ community, Black, gay men, trans community. He said to me years ago, how are you going to call yourself about Black empowerment and you're not inclusive of all Black people, right? And some of that is us having to have that look in the mirror, a conversation, right? Because oppression is oppression. Yeah. And the strategies and the insidiousness of white supremacist culture would have me fighting against you because you're light skinned, I'm dark skinned. fighting against you because you grew up in the city. I grew up in rural down south. There's like so much created division that and so the story and the narrative I think of unity and solidarity is what we can do as Black men.
Yeah, to change the narrative is really important that we work with those who, as you mentioned, are oppressed. But as you shared, with changing the narrative, it's like finding that thing that we can do within the community and knowing that our contribution matter, but also the contribution of others. But as also you mentioned that the false narrative that has been created around us and what we don't do or what we don't support, we have to change that. And as you shared, we have the phone, we can create the narrative that we want. We can support, we can uplift as we choose, because now we can be the publishers of, the narrative that we want, despite where we're coming from, despite our experiences, despite what society have said about us. We have to be intentional with changing the narrative. It's not going to change because we have been oppressed and suppressed in so many ways. And if we have the power to do it, we should do it. And we have to do it. So it's important that do take charge of creating the narrative and make sure we are masters of our own media. That goes back to, what you shared earlier. We have to be masters of our own media. But, and that leads me to my next question. I know you have been doing this work intentionally for more than 30 years. I know you mentioned that, it's 60+ years that you have been here to do this work or doing the work because, it's divine. So who or what has influenced or inspired you to pursue the path? I know you share the experience, when you almost commit suicide and stuff like that, but what or who influenced or inspired you to really tap into that divine vision you have to make a difference?
Wow, my brother, I am so blessed. There is a long list of individuals that have influenced me and inspired me along the journey. And I shared earlier about my mother, right, and the role that she has played. I write about in my book, and a lot of times these like moments I write about in my book as a early elementary school student, being in bed, and there were two women in the room, that I slept in. When my godmother took care of me during the week, she took care of other kids, and I slept in what was called the playroom. And there were two women. My godmother ran numbers with Nicky Barnes, his father, so the household was the apartment in Harlem was often busy with people moving here and people moving there. But I was laying in the bed, and these two women were looking at a magnet of the United States that I had gotten as a gift, and that's how I learned geography and putting the states. And I overheard them talking about me, and they said, Shawn created this, right? Look at the map, and he's learning geography. And one of the women said, yeah, Shawn really loves to read. I didn't even know them, but I heard them say, I love to read. I didn't know that I loved to read, but in that moment, I said, oh, I guess I love to read. And so I've had so many people in moments like that was just like a passing. And then mentors like John Simon, who was the founder of the Dome Project, got involved in the Dome Project when I was 12, 13 years old, joined their basketball team, their after school program. Before we can go up to practice. We all, as a team, had to read out loud in the circle. Transformational book in my early adolescence, reading with my teammates was Man Child in the Promised Land by Claude Brown. And I was just captivated by the storytelling of that book. Later in life, Jeff Canada, the founder of the Harlem Children's Home,
Yeah.
Reverend Dr. Alfonso Wyatt. There are just so many. Susan L. Taylor from Essence Magazine, who shared with me that the essence of success is you have to show up fit, focused, organized, disciplined, and with a plan. Terry Williams, the author of Black Pain, The Personal Touch, a mentor. And Terry said to me, she said, Shawn, what you think is your curse could be your blessing in disguise. She told a group of young people, I had launched a youth newspaper called Harlem Overheard when I was at the Harlem Children's Home. And she came in to speak to them, and she said to them, if you're not leaving the house most days with butterflies in your stomach because of what you're being called to do, that your life is pathetic. And while I thought that was a little harsh for the young people, but I also thought, oh, she's not talking to just the young people. So that sense of having butterflies. And so I have had so many, Richard, mentors and people that have influenced me over the years. The late Richard Murphy, who was the founder of Reedland, Martin Tandler, who gave me my first job after graduating college and was a mentor. And so, so many mentors and peers. And and it happens in a moment, right? And so I played basketball. And so there are coaches.
Yeah.
Coach Norm in my early playing days was a coach of St. Matthew's and St. Timothy's church on the Upper West Side. This was just an instant. I remember early on not having a lot of confidence in my game. This was a CYO game. And I remember early in this first game going up for a shot. I was a little left to the corner, going up for my shot. And I can hear the coach on the sideline as I was releasing the ball. He was like, that's good. That's good. He had so much confidence in my jump shot, maybe because what I just demonstrated in practice. I missed the shot, but I never forget the feeling of him believing in me. And I was like, oh, maybe I do have a jump shot. So that was a coaching moment.
Yeah.
Another coaching moment, I had an opportunity after my sophomore year of high school at Brooklyn Technical High School, got a scholarship to a prep school in Groton, Massachusetts, and playing football. And this was JV football.
Yeah.
First game, I was playing wide receiver, wide open in the end zone. Quarterback threw me the ball. Looked like it took forever in slow motion. The ball went right through my hand.
Oh, wow.
Easy touchdown. Coach Draper yelled from the sideline, same play, same play. Everybody in the stands knew. The other team knew. He said the same play. Scared to death. The very next play, I'm in the end zone again. I got 3 defenders draped on me because they knew the ball was coming, same play. But I reached up, grabbed the ball over the 3 defenders, and scored the game-winning touchdown. They gave me the nickname Vacuum. And I remember in hindsight, Coach Draper could have benched me when I dropped the touchdown the first time. So it is in moments like that that I have had a succession of men and women, coaches, teachers, mentors, pastors speak into my life. And one of my values is reciprocity. And all that has been poured into me, I am committed to pouring back out to the next generation and to younger generations. And so many people influencing me like yourself. I wasn't hyping things, and I said I want some coaching from you because what you have created.
Yeah.
I was like,
And I do
like that.
appreciate, man, that's really speaks volume to even my commitment to the work itself and to take the torch of those who have before me forward, because that really it speaks volume, especially coming from someone that when I'm starting, the person that is saying it to me is someone that I look up to, not knowing to you that was what I was doing even when I reached out and sent the messages and stuff like that 7 years ago, to tell me that, man, you don't know. When I read the message the first time, I go back and read it. A couple weeks ago when you had mentioned it. So I read it several times because it really speaks volume. But I really want to touch on something that you shared earlier, especially when you talk about those who inspired and influenced you, impact your life on the journey, where you mentioned the person said to you that Shawn loved to read. I don't know if the listeners realize how powerful that is. Even to you in the moment, you said, am I that person? Do I love to read? But you see, when we speak life into people,
Mm,
man, it is so powerful because they get you to believe you are something or do something that you didn't even know you would have the passion
yeah.
for. And,
Yes.
and that is how important and impactful we are, especially as Black men. And I like to say, once we become conscious, it's our responsibility to help those who are unconscious to become conscious. So we help those who are unconscious of their gifts, their talents, and their ability by speaking it
Mm,
into them. So when you share that, man, it is so profound and important for us to share what we see in others, because sometimes they themselves don't believe
yeah.
that's who they are. And the next thing that I want to touch on before I get to the next question, when you share that experience with you on the football field, I think that is important because sometimes we have the person who can make the touchdown for us, but because they messed up once, we decide not to use that person again. But yet we knew in the beginning the person had the ability, but because they messed up, we change our perspective of that person and don't forgive them and help
Yes.
them to do what we already believe they can do. So man, those two, from what you shared so much that I know the listeners will go back and listen to. But I think, those two stories, those two experiences, I think it is important that we realize that we can speak life into others and help others to believe even what
Mm,
they don't believe about themselves.
that's
So
powerful there, brother.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Were you going to say something else before I go to the next question?
No, I'm gonna let you go to the next question.
Okay, all right. So I know you had shared something on this before, but I still want to ask just for context, and for those who are listening in on today. What is your perspective on the current climate of Black men today? I know you talk about the narrative. I know you talk about a false narrative that they
Yeah.
speak about Black men, but what is your perspective on Black men today?
Yeah, Richard, I often talk about the paradox of promise and peril for Black men and boys. And so the perspective is this: I see so much promise, I see so much brilliance in Black men. My network of Black men I know so many awesome dads, leaders that are not only contributing to their families and to their communities, young people that are rising with purpose, young Black men rising with purpose, right? So the paradox of promise and peril is that I also see the peril side. There was a report that just came out saying that 25% of young people in New York City are living in poverty. Many are young Black men. I see in the headlines every day of the peril of community violence, state violence, the peril, and we referenced this earlier, of Black men, young and old, taking their own lives. So when you ask me, what's the state of Black men and boys, my answer is like, it is the paradox of promise and peril. And I believe it was Dr. King that said that none of us are free until all of us are free. And so it is like simultaneously inspiring and heartbreaking. And it's less about the climate of Black men and boys, and more so about the climate of society and the conditions and perceptions of society that are imposed upon Black men and boys, imposed upon Black people, anti-Blackness, that results in so much of the peril.
Right.
And I was just sharing this with two of my mentors earlier today, Joyce and Reverend Nelson Johnson. They founded something called the Beloved Community Center in Greensboro, North Carolina. I remember this time in this photo, my iPhone, it does like these dates, and in 2016, this time in July, I went down and spent some time with them. They're like my godmother and godfather in the movement. And stories of leadership, civil rights movement, marriage. And I returned home to New Jersey, kind of inspired and like campaign for Black male achievement, taking it to the next level. The week when I returned, in a matter of a couple days, within a couple days, the police murdered Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And then 2 days after that, Philando Castile was murdered right outside of Minneapolis on FaceTime Live. He had a permit to carry his gun. And I had this moment of disillusionment that I was clinging on to. I was clinging on to racism is going to end in my lifetime. And that I'm going to do my little piece to the mosaic and contribute my little piece to this mosaic of racism ending in my lifetime. But that week when I came back all charged up, and those two deaths that just like, that were on social media, and I said, you know what, Shawn, racism is not ending in your lifetime, but you can do all that you can do while you still have breath in your body to pour into the next generation of leaders. Do what you can do to tell your story and to inspire others, to resource others, and continue to do the work that you've been blessed to do. And that moment of disillusionment kind of shifted like my perspective. And a few years back, around 2016, I had an executive coach that had me do an assignment of writing my own eulogy. And first I was like, what? Write my own eulogy. But it's a powerful exercise of being intentional about your life, speaking what you want your life, and writing what you want to be known for. And I want to live my life so that my eulogy serves as somebody else's life epilogue. That someone will hear my eulogy that is at a point where they don't believe there's more for them. They believe that their dreams are just not going to work out. That they hear my eulogy and they're like, hold up, there's still more to be written and still more to be told about my life, because Shawn Dove lived, and his eulogy has inspired my epilogue when I thought my story was over. And so when you ask the question, the state of Black men and boys, I think of Frankie Beverly and Maze, Joy and Pain.
joy and pain.
Yeah.
And just listening to you sharing the state of Black men, the current climate of Black men, as you talk about the brilliance, the leadership, and you see young people rising up with purpose, but also, which we all are aware of, is the poverty, violence, and suicide within our community, and that shows, we still have a lot of work to do, and we can't depend so much on politics or government to do the work for us, knowing that we know that things need to be done within our community. And as you shared, sometimes I wonder why these things happen when we see Black people, or especially Black men, get killed, what seems to be more so racially motivated. It can get you to get discouraged and say, man, is the work been done? What am I doing? Is anything changing? But as you mentioned and remind us that despite what happens, we have to, just focus on doing our part. And also, I think, which is really profound, as you talk about the exercise you did when you wrote the eulogy, and how you want to live in a way where if someone should read it, they can say, you know what, maybe I still have more to give to life. And I think that's one thing that as men, we need to aspire to, live in a way where when someone talk about us or the work that we're doing, someone will be inspired to want to do more and to realize that they too have more to give to society. And so just listening to you sharing that, man, it's a great reminder to us what needs to be done despite the good things that's happening, as you talk about the promise and perils. So, it is something that we all need to be aware of. And as we continue on this journey, despite the good that's happening, there are still challenges, that we need to address.
And let me say this as well. I often ask the question, like, how do you quantify hope in the movement of Black male achievement? And I'm sure I'm looking at it, right? I don't have to look any further. And I look at the content that you put out, the books that you publish, and the messages on a consistent basis that are about like edification and uplift. And I can't get off of this call and this Zoom and flip the script and ask you, what is the source of your inspiration that you have created this system and this process to inspire and uplift Black men and boys? Like from whence does that come from, brother?
I'm glad you asked that question because a lot of people sometimes wonder what motivates me. And I can tell you, my journey is not one that is easy. It looks easy from the outside, but to go back to what really inspired me or motivated me to take this journey, even before I knew it, it's like, as you mentioned, divine assignment. I think when I realized, I'm just going to say when I realized it, but I'm going to just go back to my life first. So in about 2010, I realized that this is what my purpose is, to empower Black boys and stuff like that. But why it comes to that point for me to realize, for me, I grew up in poverty. When I said poverty, real poverty. And I don't tell this story a lot, but growing up in Jamaica, poverty, and when I said poverty, I was that person who I didn't even do well in high school. But I blame my ability based on my social status. So we grew up poor. And I like to tell people that I share with people sometimes when I do speak that I didn't sleep in a bed until I was 19 years old. So that's how poor we were. So for me, not knowing that I could be anything in life, even though I had the hope that things could change, but how I was living didn't really reflect what was possible. But the moment I realized what was possible, and that was when I came here on a track and field scholarship to the United States, after my first year becoming the top student with the highest GPA as a student athlete, I was like, man, where this ability came from? I could have already been doing well academically. I didn't have no subjects leaving high school. I was like, oh, my purpose now is to help Black males to realize that innately they have the potential to achieve whatever goals they want. And after I graduated, within 3 years after coming here, I said to myself, that was beginning of 2010, I was like, how am I going to do this? Can I really do this? Have this like overwhelming feeling that I couldn't really get rid of, to empower other Black males, because now I'm seeing them, especially my peers and those who I'm coming in contact with, who limit themselves, maybe because of what society have said. And so how can I do this work? And the moment I accept, it's like I couldn't get rid of the thought that this is what I'm supposed to do. So everything since then was about, empowering Black males, although I didn't fully get into it until later. Like I can tell, maybe it was around 2017, I really say, you know what? Everything that I do going forward will be about Black males, especially if I'm working in schools, is to empower Black males. If I'm working in corporate America, it is a way to empower Black males. And just to kind of give you a scope of what inspired me, so it's my own journey of not being the person who many thought would be anything in life. And at one point, I didn't believe I would be anything in life, because graduating from high school without the credentials to go to college, I didn't think it would be possible. But as you mentioned in the early part of the conversation, when God has a plan for you, there's nothing.
That's right.
Nothing can stop that plan. Yes. And I think that's what happened, because I ended up going to college in Jamaica without the qualification to go to college. And I like to tell people that I went to college on grace. So when God has a plan for you, the struggles is no comparison to what God can do for you, for where you're supposed to be. And sometimes we need that struggle.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Prepare ourselves for the divine purpose of our life. So when I tell people today, like, even if I, experience challenges, and I've experienced several different challenges after graduating from college, that if I spell it out, I shouldn't be even doing what I'm doing right now. But I always tell people, now is not the right time to share some of those challenges. But if I spell it out, people would be like, man, how do you? But I think it's just that spirit within me that really drives me every day. I look forward to doing this every day. I look for, like, I'm going to my bed thinking about what I'm going to share to empower the people tomorrow.
That's calling.
Yes, sir.
That's
and just to answer your question, I know this is not about me sharing about my journey. This is for me here talking to you, but I really appreciate you asking the question, because a lot of people ask me, and it's like I just can't, like, even I tell you, some days, to be honest with you, some days I say, you know what, man, am I supposed to be doing this? And then as not even 5 minutes or so later, I get a message.
Get a sign. Yep.
Somebody said, man, I read what you shared yesterday, and you give me the power to continue. And it's like, that's, get rid of that thought you had previously, because you just get your confirmation why you need to continue. But it goes back to what you shared so many different things about why this is important and why going within yourself. So once I go within, I know this is what I'm supposed to do, because I couldn't plan this journey. I couldn't plan this. I could not plan this journey. Like, I just couldn't. And a lot of times I reflect, as you talk about reflecting, I could not plan this journey. I said, sometimes, how did I end up here? I could not. Again, when God has a plan for you and for you to do something beyond yourself, and I accept this a long time ago, I'm not here for me. I'm not here for me. The work that I'm supposed to do is greater than myself, and I just have to keep doing the work. Awards or no awards, recognition or no recognition, promotion or no promotion. I'm going to do this, and each time I may get as human beings, you sometimes want that confirmation, and you get it because God will remind you through people or through opportunities that yes, this is what you're supposed to do to empower others. But let me get off me sharing.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for taking a moment to share pieces of your story that I certainly did not know, and maybe some of your followers did not know. And just want to thank you for your leadership,
Thank you.
your commitment, your courage, and your faith, brother. Thank you.
I appreciate it, man. A lot of people don't know when I, especially when I go places and speak and I share, especially the early part of my journey.
Well, don't edit this out. Don't edit that part out.
No, no. It's gonna be in it. It's gonna be in it. It's gonna be in it. But because a lot of people don't know my journey. A lot of people do think that I started off on smooth sailing and that everything was in place for me to be where I am today. But again, when God has a plan for you, it doesn't matter what struggles or obstacles are in your way. God will find a way for you to get through those struggles, to be where you're supposed to be, and to impact the people that you're supposed to impact. So I'm just going to skip over one question that I have because I know you have shared a lot of thoughts on it. And that is the general things that we need to do as Black men. You have shared so many things about what we can do going forward, from look within ourselves, from having that passion and commitment to serve in our community, and also have self-compassion for ourselves. So my next question to you is,
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
And maybe this might be part of your next question.
Yes.
One thing we did not get an opportunity to touch on in depth on what Black men can do, but making our health, healing, and well-being a priority. Our physical, mental, and emotional health, regular checkups, in the view of age, regular PSA, and being really diligent around our health. And it's okay. So therapy is not a sign of weakness; it's a sign of strength.
And I'm really glad that you make that plug in because we must take care of our health. Because that's one thing that they say we don't do as Black men. And it's important that we make our health a priority, physical, mental, and emotional health a priority, especially our physical health, because we work so hard to get to a certain goal, but when we get there, we can't enjoy it because we're not physically healthy to enjoy what we have worked hard to accomplish. So I really appreciate you make that plug because it's important for us as Black men, especially knowing that's one thing we have heard several times that we don't do. So let's take care of our health. And which goes back to what I was about to ask the question, what was and I know you have covered this and again, this is just for context.
Yes.
What was a pivotal moment in your life? I know you shared a story about committing suicide and stuff like that, and other stories that I can't really pull back right now. But what was a pivotal moment in your life, and what that pivotal moment led you to do afterwards?
Yeah. So obviously, I would amplify a pivotal moment, deciding not to jump on the tracks and grab the third rail. A pivotal moment, meeting my current wife, Desiree, right? Met her 30 years ago last month. Love at first sight. I was out of my first marriage, and God said, I have a plan for Shawn. How he's behaving, he still thinks that his college nickname of the Love Dove is a real thing. He's going to create a lot of problems for himself. I'm going to deliver to him his wife, his mistress, and the mother of his children, all in the same woman. And we all know some brothers that got, 3 different women, each of those, right? And so a pivotal moment was meeting a Desiree and committing on this like life a journey. Pivotal moment when the late Richard Murphy, who was a founder of Reedland Centers for Children and Families and was New York City Mayor Dinkins' first commissioner of youth services. When I was trying to decide, I had come out of treatment and was trying to decide what I was going to do with the rest of my precious life, as now that I was getting clean, had gotten clean, but had a lot of shame and embarrassment and did not want to go back into the youth development and community building field. And remember having a conversation with him on 106th Street in Broadway, and him sharing the field needs you, what you have to give, and making a decision to like get over myself and my pride and my shame. That was a pivotal moment that set me forward in my social entrepreneurial work. Pivotal moment, losing my best friend, a high school buddy from high school, college, Anthony Gibbons, who was a year behind me in age, and then 43, passed away due to gallbladder cancer. Pivotal like moment, right? And losing a really dear friend, right? And the grief that almost like never leaves you, right? There's like different grades of a grief. It's like so many pivotal moments, Richard. I remember graduating from college and going to Martin Tandler, who owned a textile firm called Tandler Textile. He was the board chair of the youth program that I had grown up in called the Dome Project. And I asked Martin I worked for him a couple of summers, worked in the warehouse that delivered fabric in the garment district. But a pivotal moment was me summoning the courage to ask him to create a sales trainee program at Tandler Textile and making me the first trainee, right? That was really important in the trajectory of just my professional career. So many pivotal moments. The birth of all of my children, and being in the delivery room for the birth of all of my children. And you may have heard me tell the story of my last born. So I have twin boys, Cameron and Caleb was my last born. And my wife was on bed rest, and they weren't ready for a C-section. Desiree pushed out her third baby in her lifetime, Cameron, which was my firstborn son. And no matter how hard she pushed, Cameron's twin brother, Caleb, was not coming out. He was what you called breech. He was turned around. The natural birth process is babies come out head first. He was turned around, and my wife was pushing and pushing, and Caleb would not come out. They were not ready for a C-section. 9 minutes after his twin brother was pushed out, Caleb's vital signs began to drop. And the doctor said, I have no other choice, but I have to go in and pull them out reach. My wife shares that that's the most painful thing that she ever experienced in her life. Cameron and Caleb are now 22 years old. I learned a very pivotal lesson in the delivery room on that day, that no matter what we as leaders, as Black men, that we've pushed out in our lifetime, there is something inside of us that we cannot push out alone,
Mm.
that we need to go to somebody else, get vulnerable, and let them know I have something inside of me and I need your help to pull it out. And Richard, so much of how I lead and what God has called me to do is to serve metaphorically as a midwife. Yes, to Black men and boys, but to whomever, has a dream, a goal, a ministry that they have been trying to push out, but they can't push out alone. And so, pivotal moment being in that delivery room and God speaking to me and saying, this is what your life is all about. Being a midwife and helping folks pull out of them, but they cannot push out alone. And knowing that that requires a level of vulnerability, a level of getting open. And one of the things I've had to learn over my life is getting vulnerable and asking for help. That's what I would say to you, Black man. Yes, you, Richard, but the Black man and young men that are listening, ask for help.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing, you don't have to do it alone. And one of my leadership mantras is be both humble as a lamb, yet bold as a lion. But the humble part and the humility part of asking for help, sometimes we suffer needlessly simply because we don't ask for help and say, I got something inside of me and I need your help to pull it out.
That in itself could be the message for today. You have shared so many profound and powerful perspective in this conversation, but I can tell you what you just shared, especially that pivotal moment, and you shared several pivotal moments, but that which you shared just now is so powerful and a great reminder, and even a reminder to myself as I listen to you share that perspective, that sometimes as Black men, we have something within us and we can't give birth to it on our own. Man, that is so, so powerful. Sometimes we have something in us that we cannot give birth to on our own. Man, that is so powerful. And I want to say thank you for sharing that, because I need to hear it, and I know a lot more Black men need to hear it. We suffer from not asking for help, but also, as you shared, we suffer from not being vulnerable, of sharing the struggles, the need we have with others, because we're thinking asking for help is a sign of weakness. Man, what you shared just now could be the entire conversation. Man, too many of us, as you shared in the beginning, we have all we need to make the impact we're here to make in the world. But guess what? As you shared, we sometimes can't give birth to that thing within us on our own. Man, that is so powerful and profound. So thank you.
Thank you.
For sharing, because that's one thing, again, we struggle to do, and that is asking for help. And it is so profound, like so profound. It is so profound. But we got to continue. But I had to emphasize that which you shared that we have something in us that we cannot give birth to on our own. Man, that is so powerful. But let's continue this conversation. But Black men, we all have to realize that sometimes on the journey, we have to ask for help. We have to be vulnerable enough. We may not ask the right person, but if we don't ask, we're not going to know who is the right person. Man, thank you for sharing that. This could be the response for my next question. This
I'm just
could,
gonna say ditto.
man, this could be the response for my next question. What life lesson have you learned late that you believe is important and can benefit this current generation? What life lesson did you learn late on your journey that you believe is important and
Yeah,
can benefit this current generation?
that's such a powerful question. It's a reflective question, and I shared earlier about if you can reframe your failure, you can reframe your future, right? So that's a later life lesson. The lesson of intrinsic validation versus extrinsic validation. And what do I mean by that? The ability to be comfortable, satisfied, and satiated by me validating myself as opposed to seeking external validation from others. And that has been part of my evolution and journey. I had a facilitator, Melvin. God, what was Melvin's last name? I want to say Melvin Miller in 2019. And I had my whole team in this retreat. Sometimes you're someplace and you feel like this is just for me. And he said, you have nothing to prove, only gifts to share. And that was such a relief for me to give myself permission to stop performing, stop feeling the need to prove. That was an important later life lesson. And the other thing I will say is just on the journey, the importance of rest.
Yeah.
And not like going, and creating a cadence in my life of solitude, reflection, getting in nature, vacations. You know, I used to, and sometimes I still share the mantra like there is no vacation from your vocation. And in some ways that's true. Like, you know, you shared earlier, even when you're going to sleep, you're thinking about your vocation and what God has called you to do and what you have been summoned in service to do, but resting and grinding. And I guess that's a later lesson because as you age, right?
Yeah.
Sleep and rest becomes really important.
Right.
And it's also about sharing the baton just as much as it is about passing the baton. You were a track and field athlete. What was your sport? What was your
800.
the 800? Wow,
Yeah.
wow. And running your race,
Yes, you got to. You got to. If you
right?
don't run your race, you know, you may get tired too quick or run even slower than you're
Pacing
supposed to.
yourself. And also, you know, comparison. You know, one late lesson is like, you know, comparison, and we talked a little bit about this earlier. Comparison is a spirit killer.
Yeah.
Run the race that God gave you
Yep.
to run, right?
Very, very, very important. As you touch on that, to run our own race. And sometimes it is tempting to look on what others are doing and wanting to do what others are doing and forget about what we are supposed to do. And when we do that, what's supposed to come from us cannot come from us because we're not doing what we're supposed to do. When you allow yourself to do what you're supposed to do, what will come from you will come much easier because this is you being you. But also, as you shared, the intrinsic versus extrinsic validation. I think that is important. And I think when we get in the habit of being more in validate ourselves for ourselves, we will be less likely to compare ourselves, because we're not looking outside for this validation to compare to what that person is doing or what this person is doing, but we are validating us and what we are doing.
And so much of that comes, brother, from our cultural identity and understanding where we have come from, understanding the stories of our ancestors, and understanding that as Black men, especially here in the United States, that our story did not begin as enslaved Africans, right? Even before we were thrown to these shores, and the history of, I think of like, George Washington Carver and the ingenuity that he did to revolutionize the agriculture and the economics of the South, and how he perceived the use of a peanut.
Yeah.
My first hero is right behind me, Muhammad Ali.
Yes, yes.
Who proclaimed, right, as a Black man in the 60s, I'm fast, I'm pretty, and can't possibly be beat. And as a little boy, like seeing a little sparkle of myself and how Muhammad Ali just showed up on my TV screen, first as a boxer, but then as a poet.
Yeah.
And then as a activist and a human rights advocate, right? And so that's my hero. Was my, I have several heroes, and while that picture behind me is a classic Muhammad Ali picture of him standing over Sonny Liston in their second fight, May 25th, 1965. There's another picture of Muhammad Ali that was taken on March 5th, 1971, in his first fight with George Frazier in the 15th round, the fight of the century, when Joe Frazier hit Muhammad Ali with a left hook that his ancestors felt in Africa. And Ali went down. And there's a picture of Ali going down after that left hook. And there's another picture of him actually on the ground, briefly on his back. And Ali, this was only his third fight after being in exile and being stripped of his ability to fight for 3 years by the United States government. Ali could have stayed down on that canvas, but he got up. And that picture is just as iconic as that picture that's over my shoulder, because Black man, you're gonna get knocked down.
Yep.
And Les Brown says, when you get knocked down, fall on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. And that's something I think we need to more intentionally demonstrate, share, and teach to our young people, that adversity and overcoming adversity is part of the journey, and to not quit and give up on yourself, because on the other side of adversity, you will discover, yourself, right? You will meet new parts and new aspects of yourself. And forgot what the question was. See, you just got me.
Well, you have answered question with so many profound perspective, from intrinsic validation versus extrinsic validation, and not comparing ourselves to others. The question was, what life lesson did you learn late that you believe is important to this current generation? But before we finish today, I want you to share, where can the listeners find you and help support the great work that you are doing to make a difference? So where can they find you? And I will also be making sure I make list of it so they can reach out to you.
Sure. So my website is dovesoars.com, and that's soars like a bird, not like bed sores. So that's dovesoars.com. On X, Twitter, Dove Soars. On LinkedIn, Shawn Dove. Instagram, Shawn_Dove, and I spell Shawn the right way, SHAWN. Facebook, Shawn Dove. I also have to lift up, and while I am building the corporation for Black Male Achievement, I also serve as managing partner with a venture philanthropy firm called New Profit.
Okay.
And I encourage watchers and listeners, viewers to look at my work at New Profit, which is newprofit.org. And I would encourage folks to take a look at my book, I Too Am America, on loving and leading Black men and boys, that I co-wrote with my dear brother and friend of over 35 years, Nick Childs, which chronicles the campaign for Black Male Achievement, my story, the stories of two young men, one from Detroit, one from Oakland, Romero in Oakland, and another young man in Detroit. And then there are many manifestos from leaders from the field that have also contributed to the book. So you can get the book at on my website or other online sites. But my website is dovesoars.com. And I encourage you, if you are leading in the space of Black Male Achievement, to get a bulk order and start a reading group with the young men in your program using I Too Am America on loving and leading Black men and boys. And Jamari was the young man from Detroit that is also featured in the book.
And thanks for sharing that. I will definitely put the links so they can reach out to you and contact you and support the work that you are doing, because the work that you're doing is important. And again, the work that you do will not only serve those who you are serving, it will also help those who are thinking about doing the work. So it's important, that we support what you're doing to make an impact in the community. And I can tell you, your work, extend past the community already. So it's important that anyone that's listening, please go and support what Shawn is doing to impact the community. And my final question to you today is, what impact do you want to have on the world?
What impact that I want to have on the world? So I'm going to answer this unconventionally with a poem that I wrote, back in 1988, when I was creating and running a basketball clinic and writing workshop. And the impact I want to have is providing a platform for Black men and boys to tell their stories. And this is how the poem goes that I wrote, 1988. Whilst at poetry in motion, I stopped to look for a brother with ways to write a book. Arranged round me with a story to tell, a billion brothers who know all too well about unwritten words that unwillingly die before bred and bound and able to fly. Why do my brothers' words wear weights of woe? My ears to the ground, I'm dying to know. We must give our words wings so they can sing a song for all brothers they will bring. The ability to dream, to fly, and to soar. It's to you, my brothers, these words are for. To give your words a life, you must sit and write your story with tales of what life is like. Do me a favor and set your words free, because I need to hear them. Do it for me. And
Wow.
that's the impact that I want to have in helping folks and Black men tell their stories.
Man, if I had the button to give that round of applause that everybody has, I'll be doing that right now. But that is good. I really, for someone who used to write poems, I really enjoy hearing that poem because it has such a profound message as you share what you want to do to give Black men a voice. And sometimes because it is so buried within, but you're listening to so they can share it, but yet they don't. So it's to give Black men and boy that opportunity to share that which is within. And as
Mm,
you said, this is the impact you want to have in the world, to give Black men and boys a voice so they too can feel as if they matter. Mr. Dove, man, it is a pleasure having you here today on the Black Male Impact. Man, you have shared so much that I know the listeners will benefit tremendously from listening in on the conversation today.
Thank you, brother. God bless you. I also thank your listeners. And when I said earlier, a quality of being humble as a lamb, yet bold as a lion, um, you manifest that. And I just thank you for your leadership and looking forward to continuing to build with you
Yes,
and
sir.
me learning from you.
All right, thank you very much, man. I do appreciate the compliment. I do appreciate just confirming my commitment to this journey and
Mhm.
hearing it from you, from someone that I look up to myself. It really speaks volumes. So again, I want to say thank you. And listeners, as always, thank you for being here with us on the Black Male Impact. As you know, our goal is to bring guests that we believe will share information, insights, and perspective that will be beneficial to all of us. And so again, I want to thank you. As you know, the Black Male Impact is where positive changes are inspired.
Mm.
Continue to support us as we continue on this journey to make a positive impact in the world. Thank you.